Hi guys, thank you so much for joining me once again, and thank you to the Make It Happen Summit girls at Future Females. So this is the second to last video in the instalments, and this woman is beautiful, she's great, she's lovely, and she's called Jenny Costa. So I hope you enjoy her talks, and just, yeah, any comments that you have or any inspirational quotes or something that could help someone in the future, just pop the comments down below, and I hope that everybody has a wonderful day.
Okay, so now we're also streaming live to Facebook, and we are live on here as well. And I see a lot of you joining to our second last live session of the day. And the next one will be our founder, Lauren Dellis, talking, but this one is the last one we have with one of our experts. And as part of this 3-year anniversary celebration of Future Females, we have organized this Make It Happen Summit, as most of you know probably by now. My name is Cordula. I'm the Europe Director at Future Females. I'm also responsible for our global growth so that we can grow and scale in all these new different cities, countries, everywhere, which is also a representation of all the 12 different countries that are joining us in terms of speakers, but also in terms of our community for this summit. The summit is meant to help you take action and get unstuck, and we're trying to cover all the 4 different key resources that you need to build a successful business. And we now already covered relationship, we already covered time, we did cover energy this morning, and now we are at the last one around money. So today I'm here with Jenny Costa, and this talk will be more about around money, but also around other things, finance generally. And I actually met Jenny when she was living in Cape Town, and that's where she was back then running her whole company remotely from Cape Town, even though her company is in the UK, which she will shortly tell you more about. And I was like to start, but not taking so much away, and just giving you the chance also, Jenny, to introduce yourself.
Awesome. Well, I'm so happy to be here. It's really nice to see you again as well. But I am Jenny Costa. I'm the founder of Rubies in the Rubble. I founded it in 2012, and Rubies in the Rubble is a sustainable food brand known for making delicious condiments from fruit and veg that would otherwise be discarded.
Very nice. Good intro. People have looked up your brand or yourself and have read some of the introductions we also given around the talk, then they know this. So what we usually do is a little short introduction to how did you get to where you are today with your company. But before we do that, I read something interesting in another interview that you gave, and that was when you were growing up, not only did you always have a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, but you were also mentioning that your dad was a super feminist. And
yeah, I suppose he was. I was brought up on a very small organic farm on the west coast of Scotland, in the least densely populated area in Britain. So me and my sister were best friends, not out of choice, but luckily she's awesome. But my father, I think my parents were always around. My mother's an artist and an avid gardener, and I think that's where I got my love of food and seeing things sort of being produced and wanting to preserve it as well. I think if anyone is gardeners out there, you know that how much work goes into growing that carrot or that beetroot, and you'll never let it go to waste. You're always sort of making sure that you do something with it. And she was always preserving things in winter. But my father was a farmer, but they were always both around. So we would create little inventions all the time, from ways to collect damsons from the top of trees. And he had his hands-free stilts, or our sidecar with a motorbike, which is essentially our bicycle tied to our motorbike, and always playing with us, but installing really, I suppose, an idea that you can go off and do anything, like anything that you're passionate about. You know, if you put your whole heart into something and really go for it, you can achieve anything. And I think that was an amazing gift to have as a young child, to think that what you really care about is normally what you're really good at as well, and they sort of marry. Of you have to have a passion for what you're doing. Otherwise, you're never going to be the best at it. And just to go after things. So my sister and I are, my sister even more so probably than me, but we're quite go-getters, and I think it really helped having parents that let you dream and go for things.
That definitely encourages that. So maybe there's this whole impact that your dad also had on your sister and yourself, and played an important part. But maybe we do go early days, so before Rubies, and the career that you actually made before you were in sustainable food was an interesting one. Could be a bit contrasty, so to say. So you worked in finance before actually managing a huge hedge fund.
Yeah, well, I didn't manage fund, but I worked in a hedge fund. I did a master's in mathematics and economics at university, and loved it. And I've always had a passion for pure maths anyway, sort of the understanding of things. But then followed everyone else into finance, went down to London, got a job. It was 2010, which was the financial recession. So I was amazed just to take anything, and started working in this hedge fund. And I was there for about 2.5 years and loved it. I learned a lot. Mainly, I learned a lot. The main thing I think I got from it though was, or that I've ever followed through on, was that every business is, even however scary it is before you take your first job, if you assume that people are rocket scientists and inside businesses that are doing really well, but every business is just a group of people trying to do one thing, and they're all going in the same direction and trying to do it as best as they can, and they all make mistakes. And it gave me that confidence that you can start a business and do it, and really no one knows what the future is going to hold. And as long as you're strong in where you're going and what you want to achieve, and you know what your purpose is in whatever business you're creating, you can answer those questions yourself and quickly pivot if you realize you have made a mistake. So I think that was probably my biggest learning. But I left the hedge fund more because I started thinking there's no one above me that I want to be. And if I'm still here when I'm 40, which is getting more closer now, but when I was 25, I was thinking, if I'm still here when I'm 40 and I've stayed because of the payroll, or if they cut my payroll in half, I know I'd be out the door in a second. I'd be really disappointed in myself for just staying for a monetary value, and also believe that whatever you do, as long as you go for it with your all, you'll learn so much in the process that I could have turned around and got another job if it failed. So it gave me the bump to sort of go and try my own thing. And I started researching food waste, and randomly sort of fell in love with this sort of want to raise awareness around the need to value food again and see it as a precious resource. And I wanted to create a product that stood first and foremost for just making a great tasting product, but on the backside of it raised awareness around food waste and the need to start utilizing it and preventing it from waste.
Yeah. You kind of took away now already my next question, which is around, so you're now in your mid-20s, you have this background in finance and the hedge fund, you have this whole awareness for that food waste is such a problem. And then I think what happened to you, and it seems quite clear now, is you saw this opportunity to create something super valuable with the food waste. Was there, yeah.
I think everyone starts businesses very differently depending on your personality. Some people like to raise cash first, some people put a business plan together. I'm quite slapdash in nature, and I'm much more I love to just do something on a very small scale, see if it works, and if it doesn't, pivot or move away. And I think the biggest thing that you need to solve when you're starting any business, no matter if it's a service or a product, is there a demand for it? Because I could make the best ketchup in the world, but if no one eats ketchup, then you haven't got a business. So I think when I started researching food waste, and I was so excited, I remember the first day sitting on my sofa and I was spouting facts to my flatmate, and I read about this wholesale fruit and veg market that started at midnight and went till 6 a.m. to get fresh fruit and veg to lots of small independents across London. And I thought, I'm going to go and visit it. So I set my alarm at 4 a.m., cycled down to the market. And I think seeing that volume of food being moved from forklift to truck around the country, and yet a lot being wasted, sort of, I kept on thinking, this is just like my mother's vegetable patch. I put on, so I still remember seeing a pallet of Monge beans, and they were perfectly packaged and said from Kenya, and they were going destined straight for the bin. And I thought, they've come so far and they haven't even haven't even reached our shop shelves, and yet we're throwing them away. And yet I could do something with that. I'd get out my mum's old recipes and create something that has a shelf life of 2 days now. I can preserve it and give it a shelf life of 2 years. And it's going to be a delicious product and things. So I put a load of stuff in my basket, cycled home, and the whole way home I was just like, I know this is like diamonds in the dust. It's going to be Rubies in the Rubble. I'm going to start a fun brand. And as soon as I got home, I got home, had a nice fruity breakfast with my flatmate, and then went to the office, and that lunchtime booked a farmer's market. I had a month to go, so it was I think it was December the 18th that the market was on in Marylebone Road. It was the cheapest one I could see. I thought, right, I've got a month to make some products to try and sell, and if it goes well and if I enjoy it, let's see where it goes. And I absolutely loved it. I mean, we made a load of different apple chutneys, and I got jars from the back of restaurants. I wanted the whole thing to be what would have been discarded and turned into another product. We sold out by 2 p.m. It was blowing a blizzard that day. It was like, I think people were just desperate to get a Christmas present. And I was so excited about selling something that I knew exactly what went into it as well. And I went to the pub for a lunch with some friends and just thought, this is it. I'm going for it. I love this. I'm going to quit my job and start Rubies in the Rubble. And that was sort of Christmas time. I told my family in Christmas. I handed in my notice in January. I had 3 months to go. I waited until I got my bonus, which is sneaky, but I knew I needed some cash. And then I knew I had sort of 6 months. I moved out of my flat, moved into a sort of shoebox out of town. I had 6 months to try and get it to work, and started selling to farmers markets and lots of little delis. And my boss at the time said to me, because people were quite, laughing when I was saying to the traders and the things that I was going off to start chutney business. And normally that's something you do when you're a granny, but my immediate boss said to me, whatever you do, go for it full-heartedly. Don't try and do it on the side. Don't sort of say it's your side project. Put your all into it, because if you fail, you'll fail quickly. If you don't put your all into it, you'll always be second guessing. If I tried a little bit harder, if I did this or if I did that, maybe I would have made it something. And I think it was really good advice. And he said, you can, if you do that as well, you will learn so much about setting up a website, interacting with the food industry, trying to sell something, creating something, putting a P&L together, whatever it is, that you'll fall into another job. But whatever you do, just make sure that you don't just let this slip for years and years, and not really putting your risk and putting all your eggs in one basket. So no, it was a good start, and here we are, years later.
9 years later.
Yeah, 9 years.
9 years from the official launch, I would say, from also the name Rubies in the Rubble. Is there a story to that one that also just came to you?
It was a cycling back the first night from that wholesale fruit and veg market, and it was just this feeling of there's so much value in here. It's like the diamonds in the rough or the dust, and a play on those sort of words of this is great produce. It's just in the wrong place at the wrong time. It might not be able to have a shelf life that can sit through going to a warehouse and then going to a shop shelf and then sitting on your shop in your cupboard, but I know I can turn it into something and still add value. And I think I wanted the whole brand. I mean, we do a lot with food waste, but essentially my aim is to be the most resourceful food brand. So whether it's while food waste is a big issue, we're focusing on that, but it leaves us to sort of, if food waste ever became something that wasn't an issue, I'd pivot to make sure we do things in the most sustainable way in other ways. So no, it's been an interesting 9 years, and we've definitely had pivotal moments where we moved out of our kitchen. We got a Waitrose launch, which is a supermarket chain in the UK in 2015. And that got us out of our own kitchen. And then we started supplying chutneys to Virgin trains and Virgin aeroplanes, which again was another big jump up. And then realized that everyone that was following us on social media and cared about sustainability and loved the brand and what it stood for didn't eat chutney or eat relishes. And so we then pivoted into vegan mayos, pivoted into ketchups and barbecue sauces. And it's again another pivotal change where we suddenly launched another supermarket chain. But pre-COVID, 80% of our business has always been focused towards restaurants and pub groups and hotels. So it's been also a very interesting summer for me. But
yeah, I reckon we could come to that, because the latest developments also super interesting also for business of your nature. But before we go into COVID things, I think the early days are also something that is quite interesting in that regard, because there is this whole time span where you went from the markets into scaling before you were supplying big retailers or a retailer or this whole number of restaurants. So in that whole time, did you just organically grow, or at what time were you looking to also get other investments in to grow faster, to reach the next step? And how did you know when it was time for that?
Yeah, again, I think it's a really personal thing, because I think people's personalities are very different. And sometimes I look back and I think, would I have done it differently? I think we've grown in a very slow way. Suddenly in the last 3 years, we've grown very quickly. But previous to that, it was almost took me 2 or 3 years to stop calling it a project and started thinking, I really want to go for this. And then and before that as well, I wasn't at a stage where I wanted to take on investment, because it's quite it's a big responsibility. Somebody's giving you their cash and believing in what you're doing, and you need to know that you're prepared to push it and to take it as far as you can. And I wasn't quite at that stage yet, so I did everything on a shoestring. I had a part-time job as somebody's PA, which is the most stressful job I've ever had. So it was not a good part-time job, but it was like Devil Wears Prada. But it was amazing. I learned still a lot. But no, I think when we got to the stage where I really knew, which was about 2015, that we were sort of wanting to go somewhere, we took a small investment with an impact investment company called Mustard Seed Impact. And we took around, I think it was 150K. And it was we took that investment to rebrand, to launch new products, to get our manufacturing set up with somebody else as well. And our supply chain, as you can imagine, is quite, it's probably, most businesses are so focused on just sales and marketing, but because we are always sourcing from surplus and sourcing from waste, getting that timely and working with manufacturers that might have to do a secondary process before it can go into the manufacturing it takes up quite a bit of our time. So just ensuring that we had that, and we had security of supply year round as well as we started supplying to bigger customers. And then so we took the first bit of investment, and they were fantastic. I met them. I was doing a talk, and one of the guys in the back came and chatted to us. And I think when people talk about making sure that your investors have got the same interests as you, I think it really rings true. It was fantastic having people that were as invested in your impact, as well as, for us anyway, our impact and our aim as a business, as well as the profit side. And then in 2019, we'd already burnt through cash, I thought this cash was going to, I would never, ever need to raise again. And you realize once you've got money, it's quite quick. You quickly spend it. And I think that's also one part of, as a small company, there's quite a bit of beauty in not having money, because you force yourself to be so nimble and so creative. And when I look back on some of our most memorable things that we've ever done, it's been when we've had zero cash and when people have really been impacted by things, because you have to charm and you have to do things a bit out of the box to get attention. But anyway, yeah, in 2019 we started raising again, and we decided we were going to raise 1.2. We had investors lined up, and I was burning through quite a bit of cash and running out, and then we had our one investor, which was the largest investor, pulled out. And I remember, because it was sort of, I thought this was cash. I mean, profit's one thing, but cash just kills your business overnight. And so I was thinking, this is it. We're going down. And we'd already hired people thinking, we're getting this money. We're going to have cash. I'm going to get people into the company that really know how to sell and how to run Rubies. We got a COO on board. We got some sales team. So our salary bill every month was high. I think again was normally I hold quite a bit of especially concern and worries, and when we had a small team I wasn't really letting them all know how quickly we were running out and essentially dying, and then one meeting just decided to tell everyone, and I was just like, this is the situation. And within 2 days we were doing a crowdfund. We found some friends to film a video, and we just thought we've got to get cash in, and it was amazing seeing the whole team and actually the ownership that everybody since that day at Rubies. It's changed the way I ever communicate with the team, just by being so open with them. Everyone feels like this is their baby as well, and I'm going to fight for it. And so from that investment raise, we did a small video. We still had sort of investment lined up from the guys that were putting in the 1 million, but started reaching out to the crowd, started reaching on LinkedIn, and within, I think it was 3 weeks, we raised 2.1 million, which was incredible. It was a hard 3 weeks, but I think also giving a deadline to, this cash is coming in. If you're going to be involved in this brand and you're going to commit to it, you've got to put your money in today. Whereas often when you're doing an investment raise, there's a sort of, there's no end in sight. You're just constantly trying to get everybody together to close it. So yeah, it was an exhausting process, pretty stressful, but amazing. And we've definitely come out of it the other side stronger, and with a stronger community of people as well. We're creating a garlic mayo at the moment, and sending it out to a load of our crowdfunding people to taste test it. And the amount of people that have been blasting it across Instagram because they feel like they have ownership in the brand, and they're like, this is my garlic mayo, and I'm going to, thank goodness we are going to launch it. But there's been this sort of want to share, and people feeling like they're part of our journey. So I think there's definitely been a lot of pros to it. However, in saying that, I think if you have got the privilege to raise just from experts and from a small group of people, I would probably tend to do that, so that your focus is running your business rather than a crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah, I think so there's a lot of things in here. First, I think it's important because we had also a similar, not similar, but we had a story yesterday of one of our German funders. She was having a super successful business, and she also ran out of money because one of the rounds fell through because the investor actually got very sick and then passed away, and that was something nobody could foresee. So they suddenly then had to file for bankruptcy because there were just no runway. So this can happen when you have a fast scaling company, but it's important for everyone who is maybe in the food industry or just scaling in the scaling phase to also remember that Jenny didn't take any other investments for about 4 years almost. So then only for the growth phase, she did that. And that lasted you very long, because it lasted almost until the crowdfunding then happened in the beginning of 2019. And I didn't know myself that the crowdfunding was coming of this urgency of, because a lot of people use a crowdfunding campaign as a PR or marketing stunt, because it does give you a lot of attention. You can use it for media. You do get a lot of customers buying product in the normal crowdfunding campaign, where you get product for your donation, your investment, or your contribution. In your case, it is maybe also different than what a lot of our community knows. So there's crowdfunding in the sense of that you're just raising capital, and the people that give you the money will receive certain perks for it, products or other valuable things. And in your case, you used the platform and you then gave away equity in the company.
We were purely equity based, so everyone investing in the crowd had the same valuation for our company. That we took a VC on board as well, who they invested around 800 grand, and they were really pushy with the valuation of the business. And it meant that I think for a small individual investing, you feel a bit safer because you know that you're going with people that are professionals at it, and you're investing in a company that has been valued, or valuation is anyone's point of view, but at least other people they've invested in lots of companies and they believe that it has got that value as well. But no, I think it in hindsight, and sort of from not being selfish, it's a lovely concept, the crowdfunding, because I think it does get all sorts. People, the minimum that somebody invested was £10, so you get people investing and having ownership in something. But from a selfish point of view, it is you suddenly have this huge number of investors. And fortunately, we did it with a platform called Seeders, who on our cap table, we just have one investor, Seeders, and they deal with all the communication of 1,000 people. But it is interesting. It's a sort of a world in itself, the whole crowdfunding, because there's so many different ways that platforms work. And I think if anyone is looking to crowdfund, it's just sort of worth taking a little bit of time and understanding their fees. If at the end, or if you ever exited or the company went public or anything, like what happens then, or if you had another raise, what happens to that group. So yeah, it's worth doing a little bit of due diligence, but we found that Seeders for us just felt like the most professional, the least work on our side, and ongoing have been to date fantastic.
Yeah, Seeders will be a name to people in the UK, but there is companies like that or platforms like that all over the world that you can use if you want to think about equity funding. Crowdfunding in general, there's also lots of platforms that you can use, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and the other big underestimation you maybe also said, you didn't just produce a video, you also produced an absolute fantastic video. I think that portrayed and conveyed your story so well, and the whole story of Rubies and the whole impact, the whole purpose, that obviously plays a huge part in any, I think, marketing effort, but also in really telling the people the story, being this storyteller and getting them on board of your whole
yeah. And actually, I mean, even if I was going to now do another raise, or sometimes, especially in lockdown, the way that we've communicated is making quick little videos. So rather than giving somebody a pitch deck or sending them something, you obviously need to do that as well with the numbers, but being able to give them something that just brings anything that you do alive, and rather than just seeing a product, it shows the people behind it. Because especially for early stage businesses, that's what people are investing in, is knowing, is this team of people, are they the right ones to make this business the next sort of product that's going to be on the shelves and everyone's talking about. And I think visuals and photos and videos, I mean, they do it in so much more than a load of words.
Yeah, they do work. And also your whole language that you use on your social media, definitely follow Rubies and the Rubble, is also very strong and also brings the messaging across quite well. And with your products that you work with, you mentioned earlier, you at one point found out that you had chutneys and relish, and then your whole community on Instagram, for instance, weren't so much into chutneys and relish, which then...
I probably should have known that right from the beginning. I was, even with my own friendship group, I'm the only person that really eats a lot of chutney, but it seemed the natural way of preserving, and so it was a sort of obvious start. But as soon as we pivoted into products that our community were eating a lot of, and it's again why we focus mainly on restaurants, because our demographic love eating out, especially in London. And if we can get our ketchup bottle onto every sort of the best in class casual dining restaurants, hotels. While they're bored and waiting for their meal, they can read the story on the back of the bottle, and then eventually find us in the supermarket shelves. Otherwise, we're going up against the sea of red and down a very dead, sort of funeral feeling aisle. No one browses in the condiments dead aisle in the supermarkets that much. So yeah, it's hard to be discovered, and we felt like with a very small budget, the best way for us to spend our marketing is just getting it onto as many tables as possible. When people are enjoying their best burger or their favorite dish, that they can then feel like this has got, it's got that same quality feel if it's served in a nice place with good food.
Yeah, so that's when you then also rolled out or expanded into a big portion of the most important sauce, which is ketchup.
Yes.
And and you've once said that you want to take this disrupting to the next level, to a point where you own a specific percentage of the whole ketchup market that is very dominated by one or two, a few actually brands. So now you have the ketchup and you have the mayo. And how's that journey going?
It's great. It's been a really interesting journey. I think, especially at this time at the moment, we've had a big pivot towards retail as a business, whereas previously we were really set up on focusing on restaurants. We normally sell 10 litres of ketchup at a time in a metal pump, and we have a refillable glass bottle. So instead of having a paper label on it, it's screen printed. The label is sort of it's got a really nice ceramic feel to it, and they can a restaurant can wash that up to 100 times, and so they just keep on refilling their bottles and putting them out. So it's also reduces packaging, reduces then transportation as well. And we were all set up for that, and we launched in Marriott hotels, we launched in UK names, but a lot of small casual dining pub groups, hotel groups. And then obviously COVID hit, and we did a bit of a pivot, but I still see the ultimate sort of in the next 2 to 3 years, our growth will be in that casual dining space. Ketchup, there is a lot of volume of ketchup eaten in the home, but the majority of it in the UK anyway is still in the restaurant trade. When you're going out and you're having something, you're treating yourself to something that you want to sort of smother ketchup all over. But no, it's been an interesting one. I think we're also noticing how in those categories, how aggressively the big players play, and how quick they are to notice a small brand when you start winning a couple of their clients. And we've had quite a few kickbacks already with just in terms of pricing that you just cannot compete with, or paying a customer to put a product on a table that we can't afford to pay somebody, or I wouldn't want to pay somebody to put a product on the table. But yeah, it's interesting. It almost makes it a bit more fun. I think taking on a giant, and when you've got
taking on Goliath. Ketchup.
Exactly.
Okay, so ketchup, mayo. You said garlic mayo is coming.
Yeah. We're doing barbecue sauces.
Okay.
We're doing a hot sauce. I want to stay in condiments for a long time. I had we played and pivoted with going into soups and fruit compotes and things, which I think could be down the line. But I've spent so many years. We almost went into dried snacks for a while. We made pasta sauces for a chain at one point. We did smoothies. We've done. I've sort of pivoted so often, and it's great fun. And I find it hard to not, because it's really fun having a new product. But you move so much faster. I mean, my dream would now be that we are just a ketchup brand and we have no other products, because your supply chain can be very simple. You can just build on growth and raising awareness. And we're tiny at the moment, so there's so much that we can do and go after.
Yeah, that was. There's I already saw some questions also in the chat, but the one question is for people who aren't in the UK. Is there any way to try your products, to get your hands on them?
We are very UK focused, but I think on our website, and then on we've just launched however much I used to hate them, but on Amazon. And so on Amazon on our website, but otherwise we were in Singapore and Germany, but I don't even know where they were selling, but in small retailers. But we're starting, especially in the Netherlands, we've had quite a bit of interest recently, which is great. So do watch this space. I'm excited.
I definitely understand the Netherlands. They are quite on the forefront of anything that's sustainable, that has that connotation, that produces, that it's transparent. There's quite a trend here. And talking of trends, I think one of the things that food does have, there's a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurs to go into the food industry and come up with a product, but also with maybe a service for the food industry, with anything. I know that we in our community also have a lot of solo entrepreneurs that work with food or in the hospitality in the food industry. And do you see any opportunity there? Because now you do have such a big network and you do have so much experience. Any opportunity do you see that entrepreneurs could now jump on, or that you, apart from the one that you obviously tackling, where it is really needed or necessary?
I mean, in the world of sort of food waste and food sustainability, I think there's first of all a consumer demand for it, but I think there's so many things that people could come up with clever products that are byproducts of something else, or different ways of doing things. I think it's going to stay, and I think it's a great new habit from the lockdown period, especially in the UK or London, seeing that so many people are actually cooking from scratch now, and ways of creating like amazing ingredients. I think ingredients as a brand would be a really interesting one. I've now bought myself hundreds of cookbooks of Anna Jones and all sorts of people, but I'm loving them, and I read them in bed even like that. And I've got, I think, more of a passion for creating and wanting different flavors and spices, and so being really playful with those. And I mean, everyone's talking, sort of mentions it, but fruit and veg boxes and delivery. And I think I was amazed by, we got some data from BCG the other day, just on before lockdown, 82% of the people's money or consumption was happening in the home, and 20% out of the home. And now it will obviously flip back into that, but still it's a huge proportion of people consuming on a normal basis. Most of it is done at home. And if there is trends that are making people want to cook a little bit more, or cook from scratch a little bit more, but with the ease, I think any business that sort of tends to that, of either it's a delivery or a service, or that it is just creating sort of producing something that's a little bit novel, where the market might have been tiny before. I think it's still small, but it's a growing market, and obviously the plant-based market is growing, which is really exciting to see. But yeah, I think the one lovely thing with the food business, the food industry, is that there's so many small players and so much innovation coming out the whole time, that it's hard to ever do anything that's solely unique. But it's probably a good thing as well. You do need some other people doing something similar to you to raise awareness and to make it not so foreign to a consumer.
That is definitely, there were some really good ideas. If some of you like to jump on these, there is definitely a lot of trends, and it's never going to get boring in the food industry either, which is an exciting thing.
And everyone needs to eat, which is never going to change.
And everyone is always going to eat. Here you have it. I have some more questions, maybe one last question from my side before we take some of your questions. Also feel free to put them in the chat if you haven't done that yet, or in the Q&A box. I've seen some of you did that. And the one thing, so you had all these stages of the journey of starting from scratch, very small, bootstrapped, to the next growth level, expanding your team, going into retailers, then crowdsourcing, crowdfunding your business, also now giving 28% of your company, of the equity away, and growing a lot. 9 years is also a lot of time. Anything that you learned along the way especially in the last, I would say, 5 years of the journey? Where would you have liked to know it before, specifically to the food industry? So some of our attendees can watch it, hear it, and hopefully learn from it.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of, I think initially I was always very much solely focused on the taste of the product and making sure that it was the best tasting product out there. But from a branding point of view, the branding of a product like food, it was always Jamie Oliver or some chef always said that 80% of you deciding whether you like something happened before you put it in your mouth. So the look, the feel, the atmosphere, where you're eating it, or like what's been said about it, it's probably the same with a wine or any drink as well. It influences the temperature and things. And with our products, like making sure that packaging really works and tells your story as much as possible and represents everything that you do. And then similarly, I suppose, with your brand values, putting them across every step and stage. So anyone, even somebody that's stacking the shelves or whoever is coming in contact with your brand, just from sort of seeing it or learning about it or hearing something about it, they know exactly what you do and they get a feel for the ethos, and being clever about how you communicate what you do in every step of the journey. Because there's so many touch points that somebody will have with your brand, and making sure that those touch points all make sense and there's nothing jarring or nothing making them think, oh, you were sustainable and actually this feels different. So I think the branding point of view makes such a difference. I think from a big learning, I think from our side as well, is like never putting anything out that you're not 120% like in love with. For having a product on the shelves that you don't think is absolutely epic and like the bomb, you don't want to ever feel nervous about somebody tasting something or something not looking sort of quite right. So making sure that anything that has got your name to it is a great experience that everyone's going to take. And then in terms of growing fast, I think I probably have always lacked a little bit of a plan of where I'm going to grow. Similarly to sort of doing a little bit of research beforehand, but I think I would have probably pivoted out of relishes a lot quicker if I'd really thought about it. I remember the time that really stuck was when we'd just listed in a retailer and they said, well, our relish rate of sale once a week per store on average is around 2. And we'd only listed it in 50 stores at the time. And so I was like, oh, it's not really going to change much, just sort of you're selling 100 jars a week. So suddenly sort of realize doing a little bit of how you're going to reach the customer and how many you're going to sell and what's that break-even point.
So market research, product research, customer research. Yeah. Okay, but that also takes.
And I think speaking to anybody and everybody about your I think some people often get nervous that somebody might copy them. People are always going to copy. It's whoever does it best, and so you might as well get as much experience and as many people as knowing. I remember at the beginning I used to tell everyone what I was doing and talking to them, and it's amazing how quickly your network grows and who might open the door.
Yeah, there was an interesting question on branding. So when your products are in the restaurants, how do you brand them so that people still realizing it's a Rubies and Rubble product?
It's a good question. So with our ketchups, we push them, or we advise and we incentivize them with a price point, but to always put the bottle on the table. And so the bottle, they will read the whole story on the back of the bottle. And then alternatively, because it's a refillable bottle, we have a branded pump station where they will be pumping up the bottle. We are just looking at branded ramekins as well, because realizing a lot of restaurants don't want anything on the table and they want to be handing out ketchup and mayo in a little ramekin. So that again will be another way of getting the brand out there. And then we have our little logo that we try and sort of say, pop this on the bottom of your menu and talk about food waste fighting. But every one of our customers as well, we give at the end of every year an impact report. So we'll tell them how much fruit and veg they've saved, where it was from, what the kilo of that was, what the CO2 of growing that fruit and veg was, and often converting it into running your fridge or driving your van up and down, or if it was a train line, how many train journeys that CO2 was the equivalent of. And it helps the restaurants to be able to engage. We've seen people framing their certificate every year and putting it up. And I think it's thinking of different ways that a restaurant will want to tell your story and make your story their story.
Yeah, that I think that will help. And giving them the whole story is a good one. So making it look so pretty that people
exactly
with your branding want to definitely look at it, give it a second look. One of the other questions that came relatively early, as if there are any health risks when you're using waste products in manufacturing or food producing.
No, it's a good one. So, and it's probably bad to be calling it food waste, because I always say there's nothing wrong with this produce. It's exactly the same as everything else. It might be, some of it's a different shape or size or color, but the majority of things that we're getting is, so for example, our tomatoes, when they're selling to a retailer in the UK with the supermarket chain, they have to have a 15-day life on them to then be packaged up and say best before. And anything that fails that, so they do a prick test on the tomatoes, and anything that's slightly soft, we normally take product that has an 8-day life on it. So we'll then turn that into another product. But it's, I think because we intercept food at such an early stage in the supply chain, so with our mayonnaise, it's based on aquafaba, which is a byproduct of making hummus. It's chickpea water essentially, and it's got the same properties as an egg white, so it's rich in protein and it's very starchy, and so it replaces our eggs and our mayonnaise. But because we take that right at the manufacturing level, where there's no, they haven't put a best before date on it, or we know sort of it's got a 48-hour life, and we'll sort of make sure we have traceability on everything that we bring into our supply chain. But it has helped us a lot with making sure that we're going right back to the source, and especially I think with getting fruit and veg straight from the farm. It's come straight from the field. It's almost fresher than you would be getting on the shop shelf, but we're turning it within 2 or 3 days into another product that extends the shelf life. But with all of our products, and especially now that we've started supplying larger chains and bigger establishments, all of the products have to have that traceability, that we can say we know when that was made, what apple went into it, what onion went into it, and what farms they were coming from.
Yeah. I hope that helps with the answer. I have one last question, and then we have to watch the time a little bit. But this one seems to be quite specific, coming from Erica. So I reckon that you maybe also run a food business, because this is quite a specific question. So this is particularly about the take of giving your product to restaurants without the branding. So having it basically white labeled. Because this is also sometimes important for growing, or Erica basically asked, do you think this is short-sighted and on the expense of your own branding if you do that and try to succeed that route?
I think you've got to know what your purpose is. So at the beginning I was like, is my purpose just to be saving fruit and veg in our case, or is it just to be selling a lot of product? But I really wanted to raise awareness, and I felt like I was building a brand. So as much as possible, we wanted the branded product. But we sell mayonnaise into wrap manufacturers, and as much as I've tried to make them put our logo on the front of their wrap, they're like, well, I've got quite a lot to fit onto this wrap. I've got to say about peppers and tomatoes. I've got to tell the consumer what's in it. You're just the mayonnaise, and I'm not going to name it. And also, Rubies in the Rubble is a really annoyingly long name. So somebody putting it onto a menu, it takes up half of their menu. So we definitely sell things that are not labeled, and they are essentially white label. We still give them their impact report, and we try and sort of make it as Rubies branded as possible. But the consumer, unless we've had one or two times where they've done a shout out on the menu, but it might be a week or two, or they shout out on Instagram. But Otherwise, the consumer would not know when they go into a restaurant. And I think there's a lot of benefits in that as well, just to build some of your volume, and especially if you outsource production, whether it's in-house or out of house. As soon as you you get a bit of volume as well, you can start playing with. People want to start working with you as well. So I think there is definitely benefits in just getting that volume out there, as long as it's not a huge distraction from a time point of view, if you are wanting to build your brand, because the business and the time has got to go into building the products that you want to sell and finding and selling it to the consumers and the customers that you want to sell. So we always say, if we get an interest from a sandwich manufacturer or someone like that, we'll only entertain it as long as they know, like we'll give them a minimum order quantity, and it has to be, and we make them quite punchy. We'll say like it's got to be a pallet, or you've got to be ordering a lot. So it's for certain products that that it's not in your strategy to be pushing them, but it's a great cash cow.
Cash cow. Okay, on the cash cow note, we unfortunately have to end the session. Thank you all for your insightful questions also. And obviously, Jenny, for you to be part of the Make It Happen Summit. And if you want to keep up with what's happening for Rubies, please then definitely follow them on Instagram, Rubies in the Rubble. We will link it. You can also follow Jenny on Jenny's in the Rubble. So personal, there's a lot of cooking going on there and other things that she's experimenting with. And if you're ever in the UK, try to find a really tasty product at Waitrose, or if the restaurant of your choice, you can see all the restaurants they're working with also on their website. Then you will get, maybe next time, have a ketchup that is actually not a Hans, that is a Rubies, or a mayo that it comes from Rubies in the Rubble, and you can choose then or judge for yourself. So it would be really great to have a lot of you try the product at some point. Let us know in any case. Thank you so much, Jenny.
Thank you. That was really good fun.
All the answers, and have a lovely rest of the day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.